Many English learners spend years studying grammar, memorizing vocabulary, and watching English videos. Yet, when a real conversation begins, they suddenly struggle to speak. Why? Because understanding a language and speaking a language are two completely different skills. You can know hundreds of English words, you can understand movies and podcasts, you can even explain grammar rules. But if you're making one common mistake, speaking English will always feel difficult.
That's interesting. So you're saying the problem isn't always grammar or vocabulary?
Exactly. In fact, the mistake we're talking about today is so common that almost every English learner makes it at some point. The good news? Once you recognize it, fixing it becomes much easier.
Now you've got my attention. What is this mistake?
Let's find out, because today's episode is all about the English-speaking mistake almost everyone makes and how you can avoid it.
You know something I've always wondered? Why do some people become fluent in English so quickly, while others study for years and still struggle to speak?
That's a fantastic question, and honestly, it's something that confuses a lot of learners. Because sometimes you'll meet someone who has been learning English for only 1 year, and they speak confidently. Then you'll meet someone else who has been studying for 5 years, and they're still afraid to speak.
Exactly. I've seen that happen, and every time I think, what's their secret?
Well, let me tell you a short story. A few years ago, I had two friends learning English. Let's call them Ali and Ahmed. Both started at almost the same level. Both had access to the same resources. Both watched English videos. Both studied grammar. But 1 year later, their English was completely different.
What happened?
Ali wasn't afraid to use English, even when he made mistakes. He would speak to himself, record his voice, use simple English every day. Meanwhile, Ahmed kept waiting until his grammar became perfect, waiting until his vocabulary became bigger, waiting until he felt confident.
Let me guess, Ali improved much faster.
Exactly. Not because he knew more English, but because he used more English.
That's interesting. So the difference wasn't intelligence?
Not at all. And that's where many learners get confused. They think fluent speakers know some secret, but most of the time they simply practice differently.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Think of English like going to the gym. Imagine two people. The first person spends hours reading fitness books, watching workout videos, learning about muscles. The second person spends less time studying, but actually exercises every day. After 6 months, who will be stronger?
The one who actually exercises, obviously.
Exactly. And speaking English works the same way. Knowledge is important, but practice is what creates fluency.
So are you saying the biggest mistake isn't grammar?
Exactly. The biggest mistake is believing that learning English and speaking English are the same thing. They're not. Learning gives you knowledge. Speaking builds skill. And skill only grows when you use it. I want everyone listening to remember this. You don't learn to speak English by studying English. You learn to speak English by speaking English.
That's simple, but it's so true. Okay, if that's the mistake, then how can listeners start fixing it today?
Great question, because in the next part, I'll share the habits that helped ordinary learners become confident speakers, even before their English was perfect.
Okay, you've convinced me. Speaking English is a skill, and skills improve through practice. But here's my question. What exactly are successful learners doing differently? Because everyone says practice more, but nobody explains how.
That's true, and honestly, that's where many learners get stuck. They know they need practice, they just don't know what kind of practice. So today, let's talk about 3 simple habits that separate fast learners from everyone else. Habit number 1. They use English daily.
The first habit is surprisingly simple. Successful learners use English daily, not once a week, not only when they feel motivated, every single day.
But what if I don't have anyone to speak with? That's the excuse most learners use, and I used it too. But here's the truth. You don't need another person to practice English. You need opportunities, and opportunities are everywhere. Imagine you're making breakfast. Instead of staying silent, try saying, "I'm making tea. I'm cutting bread. The water is boiling." Simple sentences, nothing complicated.
That sounds easy enough.
Exactly. Fluency grows through small moments, not giant study sessions.
Habit number 2. They don't fear mistakes. I think this is where many people struggle. They're afraid of sounding wrong.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest reasons people stop speaking. They think, what if my grammar is wrong? What if people laugh? What if I make a mistake? Let me ask you something. When a child learns to walk, what happens?
They fall a lot.
Exactly. Imagine if a child said, I fell once. Walking isn't for me. That sounds ridiculous, but many English learners do exactly that. One mistake, one embarrassing moment, and they stop speaking. Remember this, mistakes are proof that you're practicing. Every fluent English speaker made thousands of mistakes before becoming fluent.
Habit number 3. They focus on communication. What does that mean exactly?
It means they focus on getting the message across, not creating perfect sentences. For example, imagine you're in a restaurant. You forget the word menu. Should you stop talking? Of course not. You can say, can I see the food list? Will it be perfect? No. Will people understand? Yes.
So confidence isn't knowing every word.
Exactly. Confidence is trusting yourself to communicate even when you don't know every word. That's what real conversations look like. Even native speakers forget words sometimes. You know what's interesting? Most struggling learners ask, what should I study next? Successful learners ask, how can I use what I already know?
Wow, that's a completely different mindset.
And that mindset changes everything. I want everyone listening to remember this. Fluent speakers aren't the ones who know the most English. They're the ones who use the English they know most often.
That's probably going to surprise a lot of people. Okay, I understand the habits, but I still have one question. If someone is listening right now and feels nervous every time they speak English, how can they become more confident?
That's exactly what we're talking about next, because confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And I'll show you how.
You know, I think confidence is the biggest problem for many English learners. Sometimes I know the words, sometimes I know the grammar, but the moment I have to speak, I become nervous.
And you're not alone. In fact, most people think they have an English problem, but often they actually have a confidence problem.
That's interesting. What's the difference?
An English problem means you genuinely don't know the language. A confidence problem means you know more than you think, but you're afraid to use it. Let me give you an example. Do you remember how to ride a bicycle?
Of course. I fell many times.
Exactly. Now imagine someone says, I'll start riding when I'm completely confident. Does that make sense?
Not at all. Confidence comes after writing, not before.
Exactly. And speaking English works the same way. Most learners believe, once I become confident, I'll start speaking. But the truth is, you become confident because you speak, not the other way around.
I think I know what's coming.
Really? Tell me.
I'll start speaking when my English improves.
Exactly. That sentence has trapped millions of learners because there's always another grammar rule, another vocabulary list, another course, another book, and before you know it, years have passed, but you're still waiting. Let's imagine two learners, Sarah and Ahmed. Sarah knows 1,000 English words. Ahmed knows 3,000 English words. Who do you think speaks better?
Ahmed? He knows more words.
Not necessarily. Let's say Sarah speaks English every day. Ahmed never speaks. He only studies. Now who speaks better?
Sarah, without a doubt.
Exactly, because confidence grows through action, not preparation. Imagine you're at a restaurant. You want water. A confident learner says, "Can I have some water, please?" Simple, effective, done. A perfectionist learner thinks, should I say could? Should I say may? What if my pronunciation is wrong? What if I make a mistake? And while they're thinking, everyone else has already ordered.
So what separates fluent speakers from everyone else?
It's not perfect grammar. It's not a huge vocabulary. It's not even a perfect accent. It's their willingness to speak despite mistakes. That's the secret. I want everyone listening to change one sentence today. Stop saying, my English isn't good enough. Start saying, my English is improving every time I speak.
Wow, that feels completely different.
Because it focuses on progress, not perfection.
Okay, how can listeners start building confidence today?
Here's a simple challenge. Tonight, stand in front of a mirror, set a timer for 1 minute, and talk about your day. Don't stop. Don't translate. Don't worry about mistakes. Just speak. 1 minute. That's all.
1 minute sounds easy.
Try it. You'll be surprised. Remember this. Confidence is not the absence of mistakes. Confidence is speaking even when mistakes happen.
That's probably one of the most important lessons we've shared today. So confidence comes from speaking, not waiting, not studying forever, actually speaking.
Exactly. And now we're ready for the final piece of the puzzle, because there's one habit that transformed my English faster than anything else, and it's something every listener can start doing today.
All right, you've talked about confidence, you've talked about speaking more, you've talked about not waiting for perfection, but you said there was one habit that changed everything for you. What was it?
Thinking in English. Simple, but life-changing.
Really? Just thinking in English?
Yes, because one day I realized something. Every time I spoke English, I was doing extra work. Someone would ask me a question, I'd translate it into my native language, think of an answer, translate the answer back into English, check the grammar, then speak. No wonder I was slow.
Yeah.
Imagine you're driving to work. Normally, there's one road. Simple, fast. Now imagine you must take 3 extra roads before reaching your destination. What happens?
The journey becomes much longer.
Exactly. That's what translation does. It creates traffic inside your brain. Fluent speakers don't take extra roads. They think directly in English.
So how did you start? Did you suddenly think in English overnight?
Not at all. The first day was terrible. I looked around my room and started naming things. Chair, table, phone, door, window. That's it. No complicated sentences, just simple English.
That sounds easy enough.
Exactly. Most learners think they need advanced vocabulary, but fluency starts with simple thoughts. Then I started describing everyday situations. For example, at the supermarket, I'm buying milk. I need eggs. The queue is long. This is expensive. Simple, natural, useful.
And that's the kind of English people actually use every day.
Exactly. Not, therefore, I shall proceed towards the dairy section. Here's something important. Most learners try to learn English. Very few try to live in English.
What's the difference?
Learning English means studying. Living in English means using it throughout your day, even when you're alone, even when nobody is listening. Let me share a simple routine. Morning. This is going to be a good day. Breakfast. I'm making tea. Walking. The weather is nice. Night. Today was productive. That's it. A few small thoughts every day.
That doesn't sound like much.
That's what I thought too. But let's do the math. If you think in English for just 10 minutes a day, that's over 60 hours a year. 60 hours of extra English practice without a classroom, without a teacher, without spending money.
Wow, when you put it like that, it sounds powerful.
And then one day, something amazing happened. Someone asked me a question in English, and for the first time, I answered immediately. No translating, no panic, no long pause, just an answer.
That must have felt incredible.
It did, because I finally realized the goal isn't to know more English. The goal is to use English more naturally. If there's one thing I want everyone listening to remember, it's this. Your brain becomes fluent in the language it uses most often. If you keep translating, your brain gets better at translating. If you start thinking in English, your brain gets better at speaking English.
So what's the challenge for our listeners?
For the next 7 days, spend just 5 minutes a day thinking in English. Describe your room. Describe your plans. Describe your day. No translating, just thinking. Then come back and see how different English feels. Remember, the English-speaking mistake almost everyone makes is waiting. Waiting to be perfect. Waiting to be confident, waiting to know more. But fluency doesn't come from waiting. It comes from using.
Speak with the English you have today.
not the English you hope to have someday.
Exactly. Because every fluent speaker started with simple words, simple sentences, and lots of mistakes.
And that's completely okay.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with someone who's learning English.
And tell us in the comments, what's the biggest challenge you face when speaking English?
We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep believing in yourself. See you next time.